Okay, so I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Korede Awobowale. I hope I've said it okay. And she's going to talk to us about setting up a tuition agency, how she started up a tuition agency and how thriving it is now. Please give her a round of applause.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Black Economics, for having me. Hi, my name is Korede Awobowale. I'm the founder and centre manager of Beehive Tuition. So we've been running for about 7 years now, and it is my full-time job. It is the thing that I do. It started quite out of the blue, and that's the story I'd like to tell. But before I do that, I also want to mention that I also run a charity called the Vemoye Foundation. So when I'm not teaching, or when my company isn't doing what it's doing now, which is covering maths, English and B11+, we also are trying to reshape Africa's education system as well, which is where my heart is. That's where my passion is. I really, really want to see Africa thrive, because I do believe that the problems that we face here as Black people are as a result of how people see Africa and Africans. So if we are able to reshape the perspective there, we will also see a change in how we are treated and how we view things here too. So yes, how did I start my tuition company? Well, the short story would be that I stumbled across my first client, and they gave me the first amount of money in advance, and I plowed that money back into the company. And usually at that point, someone would say the rest is history. But then we miss out on every single thing that led up to that moment, because that's what actually I would like to focus on today. Because before I started my company, it was in light of many, many failures that had come before it. And had I stopped at any point beforehand, I wouldn't have what I have today. So I'd actually like to focus on all the failures that led to my success. And I hope it would encourage someone else to realize that despite what you are going through today, or at what point your business is today, and even through the whole COVID-19 situation, I'm hoping that you realize that through all of that, it will lead you to where you need to be. So my entrepreneurial journey started at the age of 15, 16. To give you context, I'm 29. So it started a while ago. And it was called onestopshopbargains.com. At the time, it was to do with affiliate links. So at the time, the affiliate links was the big thing that I had read on about. My father came home one time with 2 books that was set to change my life. It was the book on The Millionaire Mind, and another book on Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is far more popular. And I read those 2 books one summer and decided, well, that's it then. I'm going to be a millionaire. That's my focus. And so I did this site. I announced to the family that they need to give me some kind of money to set up this site. And bless my father, his answer is always yes. To anything that comes to what I ask for, because he truly believes in everything that I say I'm going to do. So I did that, and anyone would like to guess how much I made from that business? I spent the whole summer on it. I made links, I put pictures on. Anybody want to guess how much I made? Any amount?
Nothing.
0. Absolutely nothing.
I've been there.
And it was at that point I knew that this business thing is far more difficult than anybody has ever told me. And so I parked it aside and decided to continue with my education. But then another moment came up at the age of 18. So I couldn't find a job for the summer, and I was going to university and I needed some money. And so a friend and I decided we would use the only skill that we've really gained over the last 18 years, and that was maths and English, right, to teach other kids. So we created leaflets, we bought a few pens and papers and a few textbooks, and we also decided to spend money on t-shirts. I have no idea why we thought that that was a good idea, but alas, we spent the rest of our money on these t-shirts and put our little sign T&K on there. And we went out on the streets to give out our leaflets. This business did slightly better than the first business. And when I say slightly, I mean ever so slightly. We had one client, and we decided to do it anyway because we decided to be true to our word, where if we said we're going to do it, we're going to do it. It would have made more sense to have like cancelled, but we decided to do it. And that particular business ended there, or so I thought. And this is where I said every failure leads to the eventual thing that you might end up doing. So a couple of years later, I started my biggest failure, which was Comedy Pit Stop. I'm sure Dawn can remember. I decided I wanted to do something in the events business. At this point, I was 21 and decided that I was going to start an events company, and we would do clean comedy, because I loved comedy but felt really uncomfortable watching comedy with my family and friends, and I wanted to find a middle ground where it wouldn't be too rude and you could watch it with your grandma, for example. So I started that, and I used all of the skills that I'd learned thus far, how to apply for funding and money and sponsorship, and I managed to somehow get a lot of funding for this venture. And I remember when they gave me the money, they said, you know, what happens if it doesn't work out? And honestly, it did not occur to me that that was a possibility, despite the fact that I had two other things that had occurred that hadn't worked out. But I was so sure that this time it was going to work. I had all the money that I needed. I had all of the passion that I needed. And so I decided I was going to do it big. The lesson there was to start small, but unfortunately I decided I was going to do it big, and it did not work out. I wasn't able to fill the space, and essentially I ended up owing money as opposed to making any money. So this time I made a loss, and I was absolutely devastated. I decided that was the last time I'm ever going to do business. It's not for me. A couple of days after that unfortunate event, I received a random call that was asking for tuition, and I thought that was really, really strange because I don't do tuition. As far as I was concerned, that was such a long time ago. It didn't even occur to me that we had this tuition thing so long ago. And I decided to ignore the call because I just thought it was a wrong number. 2 days after that, I got another call from someone completely different, also asking for tuition. And I stopped, and I was confused again. So I called back the two people and wondered how they got my number. And basically, I don't do tuition is what I had to explain to them. And they said they saw a leaflet at the library. Now, if I can take you back to failure number 2, which is T&K readers. And that was the leaflet they saw that I had put in a library at the age of 18, had come back at the age of 21, and essentially would then become the thing that I do today. I decided I would take on those 2 clients purely because I had nothing else to do and I couldn't figure out what I was going to do with my life. And it essentially became the thing that I did because by deciding I would take one step at a time, I would learn from the decision or the failure where I did too much at once. I decided slow and steady wins the race on this one. I started small. I decided that I would learn from all the other failures that occurred to bring me to the point where I would do this one. And of course, now I can say that the rest is history, because had I not learned from the past situations, but from the past events, I wouldn't have what is Beehive Tuition today. And what I particularly love about that story is that it came from a failure that happened at the age of 18. So I really want to encourage other people out there that you may not realize what will lead to the thing that you're doing. I heard someone say that the thing you're doing now might not be the thing, but it will be the thing that leads to the thing. Everything that we do is interconnected. It teaches us something. It makes us better. It encourages somebody else as well. And so that's like the short version of how I got to start my business. But I'd like to take you through, you know, the story thereafter. Thank you, Layla. The story thereafter was that as I said, I took it day by day, session by session. And initially I started by going to people's houses. So I started by myself, going to people's houses and doing the tuition there. I then took the next step, which was actually getting a space at a local community centre, where we started with one day at a time. So the jump between going from people's houses to then getting a space, I thought would be easy because we already have people, right? And there was my next failure. I rented the space and for 2 weeks, nobody came. I remember the community centre saying to me, have you considered telling people that you're here? I said, yes, I have. I mean, it was so clear that I had rented a space that was empty that they thought there's no way she has actually done anything to actually start this business. And in those moments, I love that because obviously today is a completely different story. But yes, so we took it from there. I didn't stop. And the next thing I decided to do was follow up on the people that had said they were coming. So I had to learn more about marketing. One of the biggest things about business is realizing you have to have many skills to be able to do it. I just thought starting a business would have been the skill itself, which was to teach. But as many entrepreneurs here would be able to testify to, is that you need to also be a mini accountant. You need to be a mini marketer. You have to have all these different skills. And that led me to one of the alphabets, as it were, that David spoke to us about, which was E, which is education. I realized that I was responsible for my own education when it came to business. I became an avid reader, reading and learning and attending conferences like these, and every single one of them changed a perspective or a viewpoint that led to an increase in my business. Education is the number one thing that I would say that has built me and my business moving forward. And I highly, highly encourage those of us here to really take that on as a job in and of itself, to educate ourselves, to ask other people for the books that they are reading that have helped them in their business, to ask our friends and our family about any events that they've been to that has changed their perspective, and also to read outside of your own niche. So read books outside of it. For me, education is key. But I read books on science. I read books on the family, because those different perspectives, you may think it isn't necessary or important for what you're doing, but you will learn so much from a perspective that you had never thought of. And I say that because eventually those perspectives led me to Vemoye, which is the charity that I currently run. Had I not been open to other perspectives that were outside of my small remit, it wouldn't have led me to a passion that I have now, that I literally, it helps me to get up in the morning, honestly, to live for a passion that burns so much in me. To see Africa thrive wouldn't have come if it wasn't for the fact that I would read outside of the things that would naturally come to me. So yes, that's pretty much my story. The final side of my story would be how we have dealt with the pandemic. Moving from being offline to online would have been tricky had it not been that at the back of my mind, I've always wanted to go and explore the online space. The online space has always intrigued me when it comes to business, because I love the fact that you can provide a service to somebody who lives on the other side of the world. So since about 2016, I have been dabbling in the online space. And I'll be honest, it is another form of failure. Every single year, I also keep a journal. So those of you who enjoy writing or don't enjoy writing, I highly recommend that you get writing, because it helps you to form your thoughts. And also when you look back on how far, on the things that you wrote, let's say in 2016, it shows how far you've come. In 2016, I had started to embark on the online space journey, but every single time it just wouldn't work out. But every time I would try, I would change something every single time. So by the time we got to late 2019, I knew what I needed to do to make it work online, or so I thought. But of course, COVID struck and we had no choice but to move everything online, which I was not ready for. I was not ready for initially, but I realized that all the other times that I had failed in the online space meant that in this moment, I knew exactly what wouldn't work. So I went to the one thing that I thought would work. And it has, in the sense that we have been able to thrive online due to the things that I learned from my failures. And I stress that so much because it wasn't by accident. It wasn't the fact that it was a one time and it was done situation. It was the fact that I knew what platform to use. It was the fact that I knew where my customers would be found. And as a result, we've actually been able to increase the price that we charge online, due to the fact that we were able to change our model in a way that provides a more niche service to our customers. So that's pretty much my story. I hope it encourages somebody out there, and I hope you realize that failure is actually a part of the journey. It's not something that we should be afraid of. And I feel people in general are afraid of it, but specifically in the Black community, I find that getting into business is something that is really can be something that we're put off by because of that fear of failure and of course needing money and needing funding. But I really, really encourage you to fail and fail fast so that you can get to your success. That's it from me.
Excellent. Let's give her a round of applause.